beautiful friends. It's Amanda here, and today we're talking about a new Nomad palette. This enchanting beauty is the Fairy Tale Europe palette. This one is launching on the Nomad site on Tuesday, March 11th. It will be priced at $59 US. However, you can use affiliate codes for this new launch. If you're ever shopping on the Nomad site, I do have an affiliate code. It's just my first name, Amanda, and that will save you 10% on most things on the Nomad site. This one should be around for a while. According to the info the brand sent over to me, this will not be limited edition, which means they plan to keep it around for at least a year. This palette has so many beautiful details beyond just this shiny, shiny packaging. I want to show you a close-up look at this palette. I'll show you a tutorial for the eye look that I'm wearing today, and I do have just a small handful of palette comparisons as well. As you can see, this is a pretty unique color story, so I definitely don't have 10 palettes to compare this to, but I am going to give you at least a few comparisons. I know those tend to be helpful, and they're also really fun and interesting for me to do. We will have finger and brush swatches, palette comparisons, tutorial. Of course, I'm going to give you all my thoughts along the way. Let's start first with just a close-up look at the palette, the outer packaging, and these eyeshadow pans, because they all have really pretty little imprints. It's very magical. The first thing we absolutely have to talk about is this dreamy packaging. The outer carton, the cardboard box that the palette comes in, and the palette itself have similar packaging, but not the exact same image. They are slightly different depictions of this fairy tale castle with this super pretty rainbow iridescence. The box has some cute little woodland creatures, and then on the back of the outer carton are the shadow colors and the names. It's kind of hard to tell the colors with this iridescent coating, but since this is sold online only and it's not on a retail shelf anywhere, I don't think that's really a big deal. FYI, this palette is cruelty-free and vegan, so safe for all my vegan friends out there. When we look at the actual palette, it shows a closer view of the same castle from the box, sans the adorable woodland creatures. And on the palette, we have some dimensionality with the castle. It's kind of hard to capture on camera, but the castle does not have that iridescent coating, and it's a little bit of a raised 3D effect. Nothing too obtrusive, but definitely a detail worth noting. When we look inside the palette, there is a nice big mirror and some lettering on the mirror that says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all?" That's what it says on the mirror. The palette has 18 eyeshadows, and each one of the pans has a little imprint detail that very clearly corresponds with this layout of trios and columns. I'm so glad that I thought to take a video close up for you before using this palette so that you could see all of these little images intact. The top two rows are shimmers, with one row at the bottom of matte shadows in different neutral shades. Based on the princess names in the middle row and their corresponding special images, we have a super sparkly trio for Snow White, pinks for Cinderella, yellow for Belle, purple for Sleeping Beauty, blues for the Snow Queen, which I'm thinking is Elsa, and then lastly, a little smoky with a bright pop of coral for Little Mermaid. When we get to the swatches, I'm going to swatch those shadows in their trios by column instead of swatching across the rows. I just think that that's how the palette's set up. So I'm just going with the flow of the palette. I actually like the palette setup in theory. It makes a lot of sense, and I think that it's really user friendly, which I love. Personally, I don't love this layout in practice, but I love it in theory. I love it for somebody else. Let me put it that way. The layout and the shades inside make sense with the theme overall. I realize that this is not a Disney collab. It's not a Disney palette, But when we start talking about fairy tale princesses and specifically naming, Snow White, Belle, Cinderella, it's impossible to not call the Disney versions to mind, at least for me. And let's be real, those girlies are not wearing much eyeshadow at all. So, neutral mattes, soft, sparkly options are just right. I think they did a good job of not being too literal and not going too far outside the semi Disney context that many of us are already bringing to the table with this fairy tale theme. I mean, if we were being literal with any of these princesses over the years, then every collab would just be a fierce black eyeliner every time. Anyway, I know it's not Disney, but when we have yellow for Belle, this is clearly a call out to her yellow gown. So, there's at least some connection there. In my mind, at least it's pretty obvious. Now, part of the reason that I don't love this layout for me is the same reason that I think others are actually going to like it. The intention is so clear with these trios that it's hard for me to get inspired creatively by this layout. Obviously, you can use whatever color combinations you want. No one is forcing me to do a monochromatic trio eye look with this palette, but it does feel a little bit one note to me creatively. I'm gonna struggle to come up with anything other than brown crease, shimmer on the lid. There's nothing wrong with that look. In fact, it's one that I wear quite a lot, especially when I'm in a hurry. And I know that there are many, many people in the world that wear that look every single day. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all wrong with that. I think that a lot of people are going to love this palette. I think it's going to be a popular fan favorite type of palette. I do find myself wishing for some mattes in other colors, maybe a more even split of mattes and shimmers, but that's just simply my preference. So it's more of a personal aesthetic choice than anything else. Performance wise, I have exactly zero complaints. I've been a fan of Nomad shadows for a really long time, and rarely do their formulas disappoint me. These shadows blend and layer easily, they apply easily. I have a lovely wear time from them. So, while I am personally a little bit underwhelmed by the color options, I am not underwhelmed by the actual shadows. I am perfectly whelmed, okay? I'm not throwing a party in the streets. They're not the craziest, most different new thing ever, but it's perfectly in line with my expectation from Nomad. I have a high bar for them, and performance wise, these shadows are going to meet that bar. So if these shades appeal to you, then I think you're going to love this one. I'm really happy with the look I came up with. I think the purples are definitely my favorite shadows. Nobody's surprised there, right? Purple's my favorite eyeshadow color. I think that the purple shadows in here are very appealing. I even added a little bit of pink just to spice it up a little bit. It's pretty. I like it. I'm happy with it. I feel a little bit Disney princessy even. So, love that for me. Let's take a look at the swatches from this palette now. I have finger swatches on top and then each shadow's corresponding brush swatch directly below. I don't use any primer. I don't use a dampened brush. This is just the shadow straight onto my skin. I just use my good old e.l.f. flat eyeshadow brush for the brush swatches. So I just try to keep it really consistent. I want you to see these shadows in a variety of application situations. As I mentioned when we were looking at the inside of the palette, I did swatch these in those little trio columns. So that way you can see what these sort of monochromatic eyeshadow trios look like together. So this is the Snow White, Cinderella, and Belle trios. As far as the swatches go, I was happy with how these applied with a brush. I think that the shimmers look pretty similar when applied with a brush, but I think the mattes look actually quite a bit better. You can see just how smooth and even the pigmentation looks with those brush swatches, especially with the matte black shade. I think that's usually the telltale sign when the deeper shades have a smooth, opaque look with the brush swatch. To me, that indicates that they're going to apply really nicely and evenly on the lid. All in all, every shadow swatched nicely for me. I don't have any complaints, none that were really standout underperformers or anything like that. Let's jump into just a handful of comparisons here. My first thought was to grab these other very Disney princessy type of palettes from ColourPop Days of Yore. In the comparison, it's pretty apparent that the Nomad is more colorful. The ColourPop options are a lot more neutral, a lot more muted, and the actual neutral shades very, very similar. It's those pops of color where we really see the divergence, where Nomad just goes brighter, in my opinion, anyway. Next palette I pulled is this Eternal Twilight palette from Odin's Eye. This has been quite the little comparison workhorse for me over the past couple of months, and these are more similar, in my opinion, than the ColourPop options. But I do notice that the big difference here are the finishes. Odin's Eye really brought their pops of color in matte shades more so than shimmers, whereas the Nomad is all the colors are shimmers. The last comparison I have for this video is the one that I think is the closest, and that's this ColourPop BonVoyage palette. There are a couple of blank spots missing, but when it comes to these really standout shades, the bright yellow, bright purple, blues, coral, I think we're a lot closer to making the same types of eye looks with this BonVoyage palette than any of the other palette comparisons that we looked at today. I have similar feelings about this palette to the way that I felt about the Ireland palette. I think it's good. I think a lot of people are going to like it. It's just not the exact right shades and colors for me personally. This packaging is so beautiful. Fairy tale dreams. I love the shiny, reflective, like iridescence. I love the dimensionality and the texture with the castle. There's flowers, there's bunnies, there's rainbows. It's cute. It's pretty, pretty princess, okay? I love it. I love the idea of this, and I actually think that the palette makes a lot of sense with the theme, with these very neutral mattes on the bottom and then these very fairy princess shimmers on top. You could take any one of these vertical trios and make a Disney princess worthy eye look. I think the layout is really smart from a consumer standpoint because this will be really user friendly. You don't have to figure out how to pair these colors up. They're very much laid out in a way that makes sense. And for those who are not big time, bold, colorful eye look wearers, this will make approaching a more colorful eye look or a non-neutral eye look very easy and comfortable, in my opinion, because those brighter pops of color come in the form of shimmers. So you really can just build a generic neutral base like I did and then put any lid color on it and it's good to go. It's made to guarantee cohesive, lovely, easy eye looks, and I'm never going to be mad about that. The purples are my favorite. I do think that the shimmers are pretty. The mattes are velvety and buttery. I love Nomad mattes. From a formula standpoint, I think this is lovely. It's just not a color combination that really calls out to me. But more than anything, I do think that this is going to be a really popular and beloved palette. I think a lot of people are going to be drawn to this, not just for the story and the beautiful design, but I think that a lot of people are going to like these shades. I think this is very consumer friendly. It's not my personal cup of tea, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. Take that away from any review you ever watch, actually. I would love to hear what you think about this palette. Are you interested? Are you going to be picking this one up or maybe adding it to your wish list for later? I always love to hear what you think about things too, so make sure you leave all your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye! Okay, okay, okay. Okay. You can't give me too much grief for doing a purple eye look because first of all, I did add a little bit of pink, okay, just a little bit. And I have been doing pink and blue eye looks a lot lately, so you're just gonna have to give me this one because these purples are my favorite shades in this palette. So just give me a pass on using the purples this time, please. And thank you. What? Where was I? Doing great. Doing so well. Good job. The Casually Sweaty Glow is really working for me. I'm using that L'Oreal Lumi highlighter stick that I just did a first impression of, and I really like it. I really like it. They sent me the other shades. Maybe I should try out some more of them because I think it's cute and very casually sweaty, business casually sweaty because I'm at work. Okay. I had a sudden windfall on my Libby app. That's where I rent audiobooks through my local library. I was on the wait list for 6 different books. That's the maximum I can be waitlisted, 6 at a time. And they all had different expected delivery dates. And then 3 of them came available on the same day. So now I'm like scrambling to get through my books so that I can finish them because I know if I waited that long that I won't have a chance to renew them because other people are probably waiting. Leave me your book recommendations because I keep asking for book recommendations and 90% of them either have a super long wait list, like several months wait list at my library, or are not even at my library. What's going on with that? I will buy a book for sure if I want to read it, but I just like supporting my library. I think libraries are cool, important, and I love them, and you should support your local library too, because it's a cool thing to do. Now me and my casually sweaty cheeks are gonna go have a little snack, and then I'm gonna film another video because I have these new lip products from Pixi, and I'm gonna do a little lip swatcheroonie for you. And there's only 5 shades. That makes it such an easy lip swatch video. One time I did a lip swatch for the NARS Power Matte Lip Pigments, and I think there were like 20 plus lip colors in that line, and swatching 20 plus matte liquid lips all at once was an ordeal. It took me many days to recover. I went through an entire lip mask trying to recover from that lip swatch video. So 5 is like child's play. That will probably be my next video, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks for watching. I'm happy you're here, and I love your face, and you are a treasure, and you should be treated as such. And anybody who doesn't treat you like a treasure with respect and reverence, you should kick them to the curb. And if you can't, then I will. Just give me a call. I have big sister energy. Okay, love your face. Bye.